and we're just getting started. So I'll give you guys a few minutes to come in and find us. Some of the things that we're working with tonight. We are using the Daisy Delight designer paper. We are using Seaside Shore, and I will be posting links to all of this later so that you can find them and not have to go searching like a scavenger hunt. I'm also going to do a little bit with the white embossing powder. I'm sorry that yellow square keeps flashing up tonight. And some of the inks that I'm using, whoops, Night of Navy, Calypso Coral. You know, I don't know what I'm going to do when winter comes and I have to stop using Calypso Coral. Versamark for our heat embossing, and our buddy that gets it ready to heat emboss. My watercolor pencils. I have a lot of projects on here tonight. My blender pen and my aqua pen. My snail. My snips. I think that's it. I'm sure I'll find some more things. Okay, so first things first. Let me clear this all off now that I got everything pulled up here. We're going to start with our sketches. If you're new to me, I know those of you in the classroom are like, yeah, no, we're not new. But if you're new, let me talk a little bit about how sketches for me work. They're called simple sketches. I make sure that you have the measurements on them. I don't necessarily make them specific to this stamp set or this card set. You can always use them for something else, but they get you started. These are printed out a little smaller. If I bring it up closer, you might be able to see it better. So sketch number 1 starts with, they all start with A2s. Sorry, my hands are shaky. It's 5.5 by 4 1/4 card, and then goodness, that's making me dizzy. 5 1/4 by 4 is this blue layer, and then a 3-inch circle. Okay, so let's see how that actually translates into an actual card. That is this one. And I want, instead of me shaking, I'm going to zoom in a little. Maybe. Sorry. And I want you to notice that this is not a white circle on top. This is a circle cut so that you can see in the background. And if you look, this looks better in person than it does on the camera. You have some white embossed, heat embossed fish, and then my watercolor pencils, and then this is dimensional here, and then you've got dimensionals on this. So let's start working on this card and see how we do. So first thing, we need to cut the sizes. Now I didn't pre-cut tonight. That's why I don't know if I'll get to all 3. I didn't pre-cut because I want you to see how you take a sketch and go to pre-cut and go to the pieces. So I'm going to fold this in half so I don't get distracted. And we're just going to look at this one. It's really easy to end up doing it wrong. So first thing, you bring your trimmer in. And I'm going to use my Whisper White. This is the 8.5 by 11, and I'm going to cut it at the 5.5. I'm going to get 2 cards out of the deal. Now, I could score with my trimmer, but I love this much better. I think it does a better job. So my scoring tool is right here, and I have the little gidget that marks my 4 1/4 because that's where I generally score. There's one. I might as well do the other card because you never know, we might need another one. And there's 2. So now I have 2 cards. Remember, when you've scored your card, you'll see kind of a, let me get it on an angle, you can see it, kind of a divot where you just pressed in. And you think, oh, okay, I'm going to fold it like that. Actually, it works better if you fold it this way. less likely to get any kind of breakage of your cardstock. And then you're going to grab your bone folder and burnish a little. Give it a nice, good fold. And okay, card's ready. Might as well do this one on here, because you never know what's coming next. If you're on Facebook, I'm not able to answer the questions while we're in the class live, but you can definitely post questions, and I will come back and answer them after class. Next, we need the 5 1/4 by 4 piece that's going to go on the top. I have some of these pre-cut, but they're not to the right size, so let's bring those in. I need 5 1/4. By 4. And these are pretty darn close to 4. And now, thinking, okay, well, that's great, but that does not look like the sketch does. The sketch has a circle. But remember I said it wasn't a circle on top of it, it's a circle cut through it. So I'm going to grab my Big Shot, my magnetic platform, my well-used plates, and my circle. Pop that on. This is the 3-inch circle. This is from, it's not the stitched layers, it's the other one. Layering Shapes, I believe. Okay. Whoops. Stay where you belong. And you're just going to kind of, it doesn't really matter where. You're just going to put it down there. And run it on through. Okay. So now we have our hole. This is going to be kind of our peekaboo into our aquarium. Remember, I've lost the card. This is what we're doing. All right. So now we just need a piece of scrap white cardstock. And we're going to stamp our seaweed. It has a better name, I'm sure, but I'm calling it seaweed tonight. And your anchor. All right, so let's put those guys aside. Let's get those done first. And I used my good old standby Old Olive, and I used the Night of Navy for my anchor. You can use whatever color you want, but those are the ones I'm using. And you're thinking, wait, there's not die cuts that match these. Nope, no die cuts. This is fussy cutting. Tap, tap, twist, twist. Make sure that you've got really solid inking. Now, I don't really want this little bit on the edge over here. I'd have preferred not to have done that. But to get the good solid ink, I'll be okay with that. That would be a problem if I rock my stamp when I put it down. But if I simply come down nice and straight and even pressure, I don't have a problem. Okay? So there's that. And then I'm going to grab my Old Olive. Actually, no, you know what I used? I didn't use Old Olive. I used Wild Wasabi, which has gone for a walk. Here it is. Wild Wasabi, which isn't quite so Old Olive-y. All right. And you can see where I kind of got a little bit of the ink right there. I'm going to cut this out so I'm not freaking out. I'm not as upset about it, but I pushed a little too hard. It's one of those things that you just kind of will get that pressure the more you do. Practice makes perfect. And even then, it's handmade, so don't worry. I'm going to grab my old olive from my coloring pencils, my watercolor pencils. And I'm going to add a little bit of color in here. It's easier to do it before you cut it. And you're thinking, well, that's not very good coloring. That's where the blender brush comes into play. The blender pen is amazing. If you're not sure if you cleaned your pen before you started, because I'm really notorious, especially when I do it in class, of not cleaning it, you can always double check and just try it on a piece of white cardstock. Even though this is stained, it's still clean. And when you come in with a blender pen, what it does, well, it blends, but it also makes the colors more vibrant. I love this. This is plain Whisper white cardstock. I'm not on watercolor. Okay. And it gets rid of all the lines from the brush, or from the, see, I didn't clean it. Clean, just wipe it like this. It gets rid of all the lines from the pencil. And then I'm not going to cut these all out because you'll be watching me for a while, but basically you just take your snips, and when you're cutting, notice the snips stay in place and the paper does all the moving. And you don't have to be like crazy with it. Okay, like you can get really detailed if you want, or you can just cut around the edge a little. On the other one, you can see that I cut a little bit more. I had more time then. And you just cut this out. And give it a little bit more so that you can see what I'm going to do with it. And then I probably would trim it down so it doesn't look like devil horns. But anyway, it'll be okay for right now. And I have my circle. So this, I'm going to take a glue dot, put it right there. Glue dot. And then I'm going to take this and pop it right here on the back. Voila. All right. Card's done. No, not really. Now I've got to work on the inside of what you can see through the porthole of my fish. Now I'm going to show you what I did here, and then I'm going to tell you of some other ideas. I used the white embossing powder. What's cool with the white embossing powder is I could have gone over the whole thing with a wash, and that would have looked neat. I can do what I did, which is I took my pencils and I colored in. But for this one, because you can see this, I'm going to do this one a little bit different. I'm going to use a different color. I'm going to, because the white's really tough for you to see in class, so I'm going to grab some silver embossing powder. And I also need a piece of paper. Okay. So to do heat embossing, we're going to use our Versamark ink and our embossing buddy. What this does is, and it's not as critical this time of year for me, but once it starts to get warm, it starts to get cold outside and I have the heat on, static electricity builds up in my house particularly. And this removes the static so that you'll get a much cleaner stamp. So I'm going to kind of get an idea of where my stamps can go. I'm not going to draw anything. I'm going to have to eyeball it a little bit because I want to make sure my fish are going to show, but they don't all have to be in there. They just have to be, because you might see part of the fish swimming by. That's still okay. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is wipe it down with the embossing buddy. That gets all the static off. And then I'm going to grab my fish. So there's 3 different fish in this stamp set. There's 1. There's 2 and 3. I could do other things too. Doesn't really matter which ones you want. And I want you to remember the bubbles. That's how I got these little blue, is this itty bitty little bubble stamp, and I added that later. So I didn't get in the way of the embossing ones. So let's grab our fish. You're going to see this better with the silver than you did with the white. Okay. And we just stamp them. And now I got to get an idea of where I want my fish to be. When I'm about there. Again, nothing magical about it. You can't really see anything yet. You will in a minute. And this fish, and then one more fish. I'm going to kind of make him go up a little. All right, so I have 3 fish here. Cover up the Versamark ink. This tends to dry out quickly, so you want to be sure that you cover it up. Don't leave the cap off while you go off to do the next part. And then you're going to take your embossing powder and you're going to generously sprinkle. Cover the whole front of the card. You're thinking, oh my gosh, that's expensive. No, you'll be okay, because what you're going to do is kind of shake it off. And you can see, now I have one boo-boo right there. See it? I need to get rid of that because I don't want, that's going to become embossed and I don't want it. So I need to get that off of there. You can use a little paintbrush. I'm going to put these guys away because I've also been known to dump this in class. And then you just put it right back in the jar. Right? All right. I tend to have to pick up my mess because I'm kind of sloppy. All right, let me grab my brush so that I can fix my boo-boo. What that was, I had a little bit of Versamark on the edge, and I touched down with the stamp, which is not what you want to do. So I keep this little tiny brush to save me from boo-boos. And you're just going to brush away any excess that's in the way. Now, in this particular case, remember, I'm going to be adding water bubbles. So this little, it's kind of a schmudge that I don't really like. It's going to go away. No need to worry. And I'm going to grab myself a heat tool. Stampin' Up! Heat tool comes in 2 temps, low and high, easy enough. The low is great if you're going to be embossing on vellum. But since I'm on Whisper White cardstock, I'm going to turn you up. And you let it get hot before you start aiming it at your card. And then aim it at the card. And I want you to watch. If you've never done this before, you will be completely amazed and blown away. You will see it start to work and the color will change. There it goes. I got the coolest thing. Love it. So now my fish are not this gray color, they're silver. Oh, Heat Embossing does it to me every time. I'm just so amazed at how cool it is. You're not seeing the silver yet. Let me get you the angle so that you can. Okay. See what I got? Really cool silver. Love, love. All right. So there's my card. Let's see how they peek through. Right? Aren't they adorable? Now, I don't think I'm going to color them at all. I'm not going to color them. I'm going to leave them the way they are. I could I could do a wash over the whole thing, which would leave the silver, and then the color where there wasn't embossing would get picked up. But I'm going to leave them like that and bring in my little bubbles. And I used Soft Sky because I didn't want it to detract from the fish. And you're just going to go around and add bubbles to your fish. And you can double stamp if you want lighter colors. All right, you can kind of turn. There's no magic to this. They're bubbles. Get them all in. And then we are ready to take this and put it down. And I just used my snail. I could have popped it off with dimensionals, but I think it's okay to have it down because there's a lot going on. So a little bit of snail around the outside. And then we just pop this on. I don't really want those bubbles. I think I got too carried away up near the top. See, I got a bubble sticking out. I can live with it, but I probably shouldn't have gone that high with the bubble. And there are our fish, and they glimmer. Now I'm going to add my my anchor, which is right here. And again, this is another fussy cut because I don't want to spend all night just cutting. I'm just going to quickly pop this out. And your anchor goes right here. Okay? So there's card number 1. And that is sketch number 1. Okay. So now let's move on to sketch number 2, which looks like really boring. But sketch number 2 isn't boring when it becomes a card. This is sketch number 2. Again, you're going to start with the same thing. You're going to start with your A2 card base, right? And then you need a 5 1/4 by 4. Alrighty. So I know these are already 4, so I just need 5 1/4. And that goes right here. And you can actually put that down because then you'll have it there and you don't have to worry about it. So there's the base of your card. And then the next piece is the white piece on top, and it's 3 1/2 by 4 3/4 of Whisper White. So let me double check. 4 3/4. My carpenter son used to tell me, measure twice, cut once. 4 3/4 by 3 1/2. Okay. So this piece is going to go right here. All right. Now we've got to do our fish, but I want my fish swimming in front of the coral. So I don't want him to be hidden or be stamped over with the coral. Why do I do that? Well, first thing I'm going to do is stamp my fish. And he is stamped with, I used that Night of Navy, just because I'm liking these colors together. So my fish, and he can either be swimming up or down, whatever you want. This time I'm going to have him swim up. Happy with him. And now it's time for my coral. Well, what I'm going to do is take a little Post-it note, Make sure that the sticky part is up here. And I'm going to, again, stamp my fish up near the top. Okay? It's not anything I'm going to use it for, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't really matter. If I got a good solid inking, I could even stamp off after I stamp the first one. I could just come over and quickly hit this one. And then I'm going to fussy cut around the fish. Like this. Whoops. Like this. Okay? And I end up with a little bit of sticky up here, just enough. And then I take this and I lay it down over my fish. Make sure he's all covered. Then I'm going to grab my coral. Now I need to clean this one because I had it a weird color and my fingers are getting kind of inky. And I'm going to be sure to get it on my white card. So I'm going to grab my Stampin' Scrub. I'm going to move you out of the way with the 2 clean fingers on that hand. My Stampin' Mist. Spritz the left side, that's the wet side. Take this. And then over the dry side. Good as new. I'm also going to do my fingers. So I don't end up getting them on. I could use a baby wipe. Yes, I can. But now my fingers are good. I still got a little ink on them, but they're not going to come off on my card, so I'm okay. Put you away. Bring this back down. Make sure there's nothing on my table. And you and Calypso Coral. Now you're looking at the card and thinking, how did you get that when this is what you have? I only have 1 coral. I stamped this 3 times to get this. So the first thing I want to do is I want coral up here, extra coral. I don't really care about down here, but the first one I'm going to just stamp. So ink up my stamp, and I'm going to stamp off to the side. And up. And I want a little bit more up there, but I don't really want to go all over everything. I only want the bottom part of the coral. So I'm going to take my Post-it note and cover up down here. And then I just inked the top part of my stamp, and I'm going to stamp in here. Okay, now I stamped too hard, and I had this mess up here. Now, if I were going to do this, I probably would honestly flip it over and start again, but I can live with it. And you know what I can do to fix it? I can stamp on this, and I can just go over it again. It's not the end of the world. Okay? And right now it looks kind of crazy, looks kind of like a mess, but I promise you it'll look okay in a minute. Take you off and take you off, and look how cool he looks. And my mess that I made, really, I can live with it. It's not the end of the world. If I were doing a bunch of these cards, I could save him and use him again and again. He's okay. And then I'm going to take my bubbles and my Night of Navy. And I'm only going to add 1 bubble. And if you look at this, you'll see that there's a big one on the bottom. I think that should be the first thing coming out of his mouth. Doesn't matter. But I don't want to stamp on the coral, so my bubbles are going to go above the coral. Okay? And then, last but not least, I'm going to put my sentiment, which is hope your day goes swimmingly. I thought I had it out already, but I guess I don't. Oh, here we go. And I'm going to pop that on here. And voila, my card is done. And I use dimensionals on this because the first layer was down kind of tight. All right, now we have one more card to do. Let's see how we can do this one. Isn't it cute, Debbie? I do like this one. And lots of cute things, like if you have little ones that go to the aquarium, these are great. Now, I want you to notice I have a boo-boo over here. Remember, even though I cleaned my thumb, I still have a blue over here. I could add another embellishment on top of that, and it would take care of all my problems, and I could cover it up. It's from this thumb. So what am I going to do? I'm going to grab this. I'm going to grab my stamp set, and notice I have these really cute shells. I'm going to put 2 shells. I'm only going to do 1 to show you, but I probably would use 2. And I don't want to just stamp on it. First of all, it's already got on here, so I'm not going to get a good clean stamp. What I'm going to do with it is I'm going to fussy cut this too and add it with a dimensional. So it's going to look like a really important part of the card, when in reality, it's covering up a boo-boo. Right? That's exactly what embellishments are for. And also the reason that when I'm doing this not with you guys in a hurry, I go wash my hands in the middle. But you just fussy cut this little shell. You could also, there's a really great set of sequins that are good for covering up boo-boos or creative thumbprints. And I'm going to use a mini dimensional because this is a mini shell. Come on, mini dimensional, get off there. And then he's going to go right there. Ta-da! Looks like I meant to do it, right? Okay, so there's our cards. There's card number 2. Let's pick up a little bit. And card number 3 is this one. This is a little bit more measuring, a little bit more cutting, but we can do it. All right, this one is, again, a card base, an A2 card base. They don't always have to be Whisper White. I tend to go with that, but they could be anything. Let's change it up a little. Here's our old olive. Five and a half. I did that wrong. You want this 5.5 by 4 1/4. If you cut it right the first time, you end up with 2 cards out of it. I didn't, so that's okay. We'll use this other piece. So here's my card. I'm just going to score this over here, and then I'll bring it back. Okay. Alrighty, now let's look at our shapes. We need a pattern one that is 5 1/4 by 2 1/2. Okay. When you're looking on your computer, it's nowhere near this tiny. And I also usually, when I'm printing them for me, I'll print out a full sheet. I just wanted you to be able to see all 3 of them. So I did them kind of tiny. So 5 1/4 by 2 1/2. Is going to go on here like that. And then I need a piece on top So I'm going to use the same one. This is going to be a little different than my sample, but I want you to see how you can change it up a lot. And this is 2 1/4 by 5. Two and a quarter by 5. Okay, this piece is going to be embossed. As you can see on this one, I had to make it be colors so that you could see it with the white. But this is going to go through the Big Shot, and I'm using this embossing folder, which has a really cool name, but I don't know it right this minute, so I promise you I will link to it later. Notice I'm making some changes to the Big Shot, though. When I'm going to use the embossing folder, I don't use the magnetic platform anymore. I use the one it comes with, the standard one. It just says Big Shot Platform. And then my well-used plate, my embossing folder with my green tucked inside, and then my plate on top. And I crank it on through. Easy peasy. So now we have that, super cool. And because I did it in the green, I'm not going to really worry about that. Thank you, Linda. Linda said this is the Seaside embossing folder. Thank you so much. I'm just going to put this on there. I'm not going to do anything else to it. So I'm going to put this down because I'm good with it now. It can go down right now so I don't lose the pieces. You'll also notice if you come to lots of classes, something comes up on my desk and takes things away. I don't know who it is or why, but it happens all the time. So if I can put this in, it's one less thing for me to lose. And I center that right in there. Okay, cool. I like that. Then I'm going to need another piece of let's come back to our sketch. I need a 3 by 3 and then 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. All right. So here is my 3 by 3. Now you don't have to match them. You could use other pieces. I am a really matchy-matchy person. I don't take chances or adventure. And then I'm going to do the green. And this is 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. Okay, so this is going to go like this on here, right? All right, so let's do our stamping. We are going to stamp this with our anchor. Now, I've used my anchor a few times, and I've got some mess on the side. I don't want it to mess it up. I also just got blue in my finger. So I'm going to grab my... Now, I don't have to wet this again because it stayed wet. The left side is the wet. The dry is the right. So I can just clean. Notice when you do that, if you look down, you can see there's kind of scummy stuff in there. It's like soap bubbles and stuff. When I bring it over here to the dry side, the scummy stuff goes away. Let me get back so you can see it. It's really nice and clean. All right? That's why I love this. It takes away so many mistakes that I can make. I'm going to go with my Night of Navy. And I tried to be clever and mix up the colors on this one. I'm not liking it as much. I wish I'd stayed with the same colors. See, now my stamp is nicely inked, but I haven't made a big mess. So when I put this down, I'm less likely to have a mistake. Cool. And then I need the Ahoy there, and I'm going to use the same ink. I'm not going to switch out and use a different color. I'm looking for my white that I'm going to just, because I'm going to cut this out so I can do that on there. And someone's came up and took away the stamp set. I told you it would disappear. All right, everyone look on the table and see where it is. It's got to be right here. There it is. It's terrible. And here's Ahoy there. Also notice we have this really cool rope knot, and you have this rope, and you have buoys. So you have some really cool, this can be great even if you are a scrapbooker and trying to do some beach, some of your vacation stuff. It's a really useful set. Okay. All right. So now I got to do a little bit of fussy cutting just on the Ahoy there. This guy is going to go here. And then I'm just going to do this super quick again. You'll notice on the other one I was a little more fussy. And let's put this guy together. And I'm going to put this one on with dimensionals because I want it to pop up a little. And then I just add my Ahoy there at the end. And all right, I have time. I can take my time now. Anybody have any questions about what we did? There's a ton of techniques tonight. But I wanted to show you how you can mix and match. Usually I do a class where we just do one or two, one technique. But I wanted to be able to show you as many as possible. And that you really can. You can really mix and match things and don't be stuck with just, well, I can't do that because I don't really know it that well. You can do it. It's not all that serious. And the more you do it, the more fun you'll have. All right, last little snip. There you go. Now I feel better. And I'm going to use the mini dimensionals on this one, which I just had in my hand. Thanks, Linda. Linda said that I did it in a short period of time. I've been working on my sweet, short, and sassies. I have to stop and think about them. Videos under 2 minutes. They're not necessarily under 2 minutes when I do it, but I speed them up a little. And there's the Ahoy there, and there is our card. So now we have 2 totally different looking cards. Okay, maybe not totally different, but different looking cards but we followed the same sketch. All right. And then we have these 2. I didn't stick him down because I'm going to cut him out better. And then we have these 2. All of them using our sketches. The sketches and the recording will be on Facebook, but they're also, they will be on my blog, which is just karamiller.com. I'll link them on Facebook for you so that you can download this and have it for yourself. I can't really do that on Facebook very well. It gets really cumbersome. So I do it on my blog, and you can have them there. All right. Well, hope your day goes swimmingly. And I will see you all soon.